Absolutely.
Right. Oh, Dr. Rackner has joined us from.
I'll say goodbye.
All right, we'll see you, Professor.
Take care, Professor Snyder. See you next week, I hope.
Right. Yeah, we'll see you, Professor Snyder. Thank you for coming. Okay. Dr. Rackner has joined us from either she's in the St. Paul, Minnesota, or maybe she's back in California. I don't know where you're at right now, Professor.
St. Paul.
Oh, you're in St. Paul, so you haven't decided to go back to the western parts of the United States yet, right?
I will eventually, but for right now, I am in Minneapolis. And guess what?
Yes.
It snowed this weekend.
Oh, Lord, what a surprise.
Global warming now that we've killed the earth, right? Now it's global freezing. We're not global warming anymore.
Well, the problem, Dr. Rackner, is also getting on a flight. We were just talking about that to Professor Schneider, who's the person who just left was the former dean at University of Chicago Business School and former dean at Yale, and now he teaches at Yale. And one of the problems is, of course, getting on a flight. In other words, how do you get on a flight? I don't know what the I don't know how you can get from St. Paul back to California, but Dr. Rackner will have to discuss that. Oh, David K. Johnson has joined us, but I think he's holed up in what city are you holed up in? Oh, your sound. You need to turn your sound on, Mike.
Your mic's disconnected. We're all getting tech savvy now that we're home all the time.
Yeah. No can hear.
Oh, wait. That's because he muted when he took his...
Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Now I'm mute.
Turn the mute button. Mute button. We can't turn his mute button on, can we?
No, I can't do that one.
Oh, his mute button. Oh, anyway, he'll be back. But he's holed up in some... I think he's in Vermont or somewhere like that, holed up there because same problem.
I think he's up near Rochester, isn't he?
I don't know. We'll ask him when he comes on. He was a former Pulitzer Prize winner, New York Times bestseller, by the way. So I got a couple of his books. I don't know if you've met him, but an interesting character. Anyway, he'll be on as soon as he gets his mic. Okay, so you're holed up in St. Paul, and I've been there, obviously. And introduce you to Rana. Rana is a PhD graduate in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, right? And Dr. Rackner is works with physicians and financial advisors. That's like getting oil and vinegar to mix, which has got to be a very interesting challenge. And by the way, everybody loved your speech the other day, and I'm glad we did a special. I'm glad we were able to do a special on that. And I told Rana we need to do a special on Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Dr. Rackner, have you ever been to Malaysia? Before I step into it again, have you ever been to Malaysia or that part of the world?
I was in Thailand, Vietnam, but I would love to go to Malaysia. I actually operated in Bangkok. It was a fascinating experience.
Yeah. Okay. Because the thing is, some of the people have traveled. David, is your mic on now, or is your mic?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes. Right.
All right.
Right.
Sorry about that. I was trying to use my AirPods, and that didn't work.
Yeah. And what city are you holed in right now?
We live 5 blocks outside of Rochester, New York, in a little community called Brighton.
Yeah, right. And just to introduce you, Raina is in Kuala Lumpur. He's a PhD in Kuala Lumpur. Terry is in Salt Lake City, CPA out of Salt Lake. And Dr. Rackner is in St. Paul. And she's holed up in St. Paul because she can't get her flights back to California yet, which is an issue. And
you can't get any flights? The airlines are required to fly a minimum number of flights to get their subsidy.
I have a Midwest base and a West Coast base, so I'm here for now.
I see. Okay.
I'm just doing it. And David K. Johnson is a Pulitzer Prize winner, a New York Times bestseller, author of, I have it back here, Trump, The Making of Donald Trump, which is
among other books, yeah.
Among other books, yes. And I have this book I found out a long time ago called Perfectly Legal.
Do we get to blame him?
About Donald Trump? Yeah. We blame the election on David K. Johnson. He's the guy who got Donald Trump.
Well, Donald said I tried to keep him from going to the White House, and I failed. And he's right, I failed.
Oh, okay.
No question about it.
Well, anyway, that's
Most people are unaware, as I report in my book, that Donald was involved up to his eyeballs with an international drug trafficker he did favors for. And it's very clear that he was in the drug trafficking business. He just, like most of the people who put up the money, did not get charged. There are lots of wealthy Americans in that business. He put the life of his own grandnephew in jeopardy. The child was born with serious health defects, and he took away the health coverage in an effort to leverage relatives into giving him more money. And a judge had to intervene to save the child's life. And Trump's response to that was, well, what's wrong with what I did? I mean, these people, they were causing me problems. And he said, utterly immoral. And the only known case of cheating at Atlantic City Casino was at Trump Castle, which I documented back in 1992 in my book, Temples of Chance, which is about a third Trump. And
so he was actually
America Inc. bought out Murder Inc. to take over the casino business.
I'm sorry, I won't open the can of worms here.
He was in the pharmaceutical industry, and he's also in the gaming industry.
That would be the polite way to put it, Nick.
What? Pharmaceutical and gaming industry.
Right.
Right. Okay. So he had involvements, but he's been involved in a lot of things. Now, as a leader to take on coronavirus, I think we had Ankit showed the report. Okay, because we always like to look at demographics. Let me see if I can bring Ankit back and see. Oh, let's see. Oh, wait. I got too many people on. I got to strike one. I would strike myself if I could.
No, I'll strike my.
No, stay around.
Okay, I can go because a long time I stay with you. Thank you. It's a nice discussion.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
and
Come
Raina,
back.
we want you back to do a special on Malaysia, specifically on Malaysia, because a lot of our viewers, you're getting a lot of these people that you've seen. Yeah, they know about Malaysia, but let me tell you, there's a lot of people in the United States who have never heard of it. They can't find it on a map. So we're going to bring you back to do a special on Malaysia. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to see everyone in Malaysia. Definitely, we will arrange a very good party for you. Here, delicious food, delicious, like everything is very beautiful. Hopefully, you will enjoy.
We're going to have a party in Kuala Lumpur as soon as this is over with. I'm getting my tickets.
Yeah, thank you.
For a discount. All right, we'll see you back. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, all right. So now let's see.
So the U.S. has less than 5% of the world population and about 80% of the attributed deaths. I'm sorry, about 28%. 28%.
You know, if this was my report card, I was grading this student, I would say that he hadn't done too well, because if you look at the United States, and again, somebody pointed out that you look at deaths per million, and which is the real indicator, and we're looking around 244. But then as I go down to Malaysia, Ankit, if you could scroll down to Malaysia, it's just right past Australia. Okay. It's down a ways here. Okay, wait. Stop. Yeah, as soon as you get to Egypt, I can see it. Look at Malaysia, where Raina is from. The total amount of death is 109. The population is 30 million people. Okay, deaths per million is about half of what it is. Wait, less than that. In the United States, like 3 per million. In other words, they've done a tremendous job. So has Australia in terms of containing the coronavirus. Why is it?
Well, go to Hong Kong. Go look at Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong, right? Yeah, Rakesha's here. He was on earlier today. But
or maybe the fairest one to go to is South Korea, because they reported their first confirmed case the same way the U.S. did. And I think you're going to see about 260 deaths in South Korea, which would translate in the U.S., adjusted for population, to about 1,600. Instead of 81,000.
Right, exactly. And then see that's the math I was looking at, David. I was saying, if you look at the math, our numbers are way high. I mean, we're astronomically higher than some of these other countries that we've had on our show. Because Rakesh is showing me, hey, Hong Kong doesn't have hardly any. Malaysia, Raina just came from Malaysia. They don't have hardly any, and same with Willie Hill from Australia. And then we look at the United States, we're like way up there. So
we're beyond way up there. We're like leaders 100 times more than anyone else.
Okay, so is we have I got two on the spot. We have Dr. Rackner. Is this a failure of our medical community or failure of our leadership? Or what's your thoughts on that?
I would say a little of both. If you take a look at South Korea, there was a point at which they were doing 50,000 tests a day. And without the data that we really need, it makes it difficult to contain the virus. So why is it we have not been able to test our population? I think this is a core challenge. Nick, you probably have opinions about whether this is medical or political or both. What do you think?
Wait. You want to know what I think?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. About why we're a complete abject failure in the well, one thing I do know, because I just look at data, and the thing is, the data shows we're the most expensive healthcare system in the world. Okay, the data shows that the coronavirus, we are the highest in terms of amount, but not the highest per million population. And I think what happened is, looking at just the data, and see, the real problem with data, Dr. Rackner, is you don't ever get, and Terry can tell us this because Terry works with data all the time, you don't get all the right data sometimes the first time. You have to pull the data out, and then sometimes you find it's corrupted, it's not correct. So the data is important. The data,
there's a big difference between data and information.
Yeah, we get information, and sometimes and you got to keep culling through it to find the information that I received, and again, haven't been able to verify that. That's the reason I have people like David Johnson. He actually goes around and he snoops around to find out facts, okay? And no one does that unless you're an investigative reporter, which I'm not, okay? But that, from what I understand, we had a pandemic team out there at one time, and it was dismissed in 2018, okay? That is not good leadership, whoever did that, because the pandemic, because we had this crazy guy called Bill Gates running around the country doing TED Talks saying, oh, the biggest problem we're going to face, and no one listened to this guy because he doesn't know anything, is a pandemic. And he went to every TED Talk, the biggest thing we're facing is a pandemic. No one listened to him. Okay, so this is blazing out there on TED Talks. Okay, and then there's this pandemic team. In other words, a first response team, which South Korea took very seriously, and we dismissed them completely. And then, and this is a problem I had, the minute now this came about, it's a at that point in time, it is a medical problem. And so who's in charge? Mike Pence, a politician from Indianapolis. Dr. Rackner, if you had a medical condition, are you going to go see your mayor about that? Would you do that? Okay. In other words, you found out that you have a virus or you may have cancer. So you're going to go see the mayor of St. Paul because he's going to help you, right? Wrong.
Well, it's very interesting because we are letting medical choices be made by politicians. It's sort of like the politics legislating third trimester abortion. I mean, who should make the decision about when elective cases should resume? So this line between what's good for a community and what the best medical choice is, it's not clear to me. Those decisions are really in the right hands.
Yeah, and see, for me, and maybe because you asked my opinion, if I have a medical condition or there's a medical problem, the first thing our leader would point to would not be the vice president. I'm sure he's a great vice president. At least half the countries think so, or maybe less. I would point to, here's my team, and I'd have a whole stack of medical doctors. Look, I mean, a whole stack of the best and the brightest, like David.
At least infectious disease
medical doctors, and ones that specialize in pathology, specialize in infectious diseases, and I'd have the best and the brightest sitting there. That's the team that's going to deal with this. Okay, not politics.
Next,
I want to ask David, why didn't Donald do this? Because David knows.
Well, I predicted in my biography of Trump that if we had a pandemic, or as I put it, a virus hopscotching around the globe on jetliners,
yes,
that he would be absolutely incapable of handling this.
You put that in your book? You put that in the book before this happened?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I can read the book again.
Well, when I was in college in the 60s, one of the things I studied with a bunch of bureaucrats, because I knew I was going to be writing about government, so I wanted to learn how they're taught, was the fact that we were going to have another pandemic. We had one in 57, 58 when Eisenhower was president. It was rather minor. And we've had several dry runs in this century, or small runs. But Trump did more than just allow John Bolton to get rid of the pandemic team in the White House and the national security staff. The outgoing administration ran a series of training exercises for the incoming administration. That happens every time we change presidents. And one of the training exercises was how to deal with a pandemic. They wrote a guidebook for them. Here's how to deal with a pandemic.
Right.
Obviously, that had no impact. And let me tell you the news that Bloomberg just broke while we were speaking. Bloomberg had reporters go through the death data in New York City for a number of years. New York City in the spring should have had, and remember the first recorded deaths in New York weren't until February.
Right.
New York should have had 8,000 deaths in the first 3 months of this year. It had 32,000, 4 times as many. The number of deaths we're reporting is a serious undercount of the actual level of death, and it'll be probably several years before we get accurate counts. But the 81,000 number, rounding it, for as of yesterday for the U.S. is obviously quite low. Based on other data I've read and some work done by 2 guys who write for DC Report and are numbers nuts, it seems to be pretty clear that the kill count at this point is over 120,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, I believe in what I call the ringer theory. Okay, if you're a gamer, you believe in what they call the ringer. So, and I learned that a long time ago when I was in college. There was a chess tournament I wanted to win called the Pan American Intercollegiate. We didn't have the talent at the University of South Florida to do it, so I got scholarshiped 2 of the best players in the Larry Christensen, Ron Henley. We won it. Then I was playing trivia up in Whatcom County, okay? And we could never win this trivia contest. I brought a guy in called Ken Jennings, okay? Who, by the way, if you ever found Ken,
Jeopardy.
okay, Ken knows me very well. Okay, because I called him. I said, Ken, I'm having this big problem. I can't win this trivia tournament. Can you come and play on our team? So Ken comes in from Seattle because he had moved back from Salt Lake to Seattle and played on our trivia team. Lo and behold, we won the trivia tournament.
What's around, Nick? Would you stack that deck or what?
Then I wanted to win a foosball tournament, okay? And I was good, but I wasn't that great. So I brought in this guy, Carl Miller, who was world foosball champion. We won the foosball tournament. When you want to win something, you find the best person that you can and bring them on your team to support your team going forward. And I'm sorry, Mike Pence may be a great governor. He may be you may love him, whoever's out there loves him, good for you. Okay, but he is not a medical doctor. He's the wrong person to have on your medical team. Wrong guy leading it.
Leaders, you don't have to have a vice president as a medical doctor.
Yeah,
as a leader, you hire the team.
Sure.
You
And the
hire
politicians,
the IT team to build your IT product. You hire the medical
best politicians don't necessarily have to be the best in medical. And even Bill Gates, as smart as this guy is, everybody goes, okay, Bill Gates, and you can see it on the internet, played the world champion, Magnus Carlsen. Okay, it wasn't even close. Magnus slaughtered him in 90 seconds and maybe 9 moves. It was horrible. Okay, Bill Gates may be the best computer guy in the world, maybe 100, but he can't beat a world champion chess player at chess. It's just never going to happen. So what you want to do is bring those people on your team. Then you win. Okay, and that's not what happened.
And Nick, we also had a CDC team in Wuhan that in late November, said there are indications that we have a novel coronavirus that will spread. So the administration was told about that right away. The administration has known since late November. And the problem is that Donald is incapable of processing information that contradicts what he believes. And I've observed this in him as long as I've known him, which is almost 32 years now. If there's something that contradicts what he believes, he has to dismiss it. He has to call it a hoax. He has to say you're a liar. So.
Oh, that must be Donald calling you right now.
Yeah, stop calling me at home.
You know we're big hot, so that's probably Donald calling you.
Yeah, that's Donald calling you. But what are you
lighten up, buddy, lighten up, or blah blah blah. Like, but the thing is, unfortunately, the medical situation has become a political and economic situation, and that really bothers me because Dr. Rackner, I would prefer to find the best pathologist, best immunologist, best virologist in the country, and bring them on and have a team of them. I wouldn't have one. I'd have a group of them, and then when you have a question, turn it over to them to answer, not try to be a medical practitioner.
Right. But
turn it
here's the question today. Where do we go from now? Where is that team? How would we put this team together? Because we're not talking about this in history. Here we are going through it right now. What should we do today?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, that's an absolutely good point.
And we have to
And
look at that. We also have to look at who do we want to do it, right? Because right now we're not being led right. Our numbers are way off whack. And, you know, I heard some things over the weekend that seriously disturbed me. And part of it was, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. Why should I wear a mask?
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't care that I spread what I have to anyone.
Right. And this is
everyone else is wearing a mask, so why should I?
in the studies I've seen, Dr. Rackner, if I wear a mask and they wear a mask, it's 1.2% probability if one person's infected that I get infected. If one person wears a mask, the other doesn't, it's 5.6. If you don't both wear a mask, you're going to both get sick. I mean, that's what the studies say. And so I wear a mask and I wear gloves. I hate doing it, but the thing is, at the same time, how can I read that study and not?
But it's the data shows that the cultures who followed that practice and enforced it, not just followed it, but enforced it. Because that's what people were telling me over the weekend here in the U.S. was, well, in other countries, they penalize you. And, you know, they don't penalize us here. So I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, fine, be a spreader. But in other countries that we show data, the death rates are this compared to ours.
Absolutely.
And so this is what we have to look at, not just the data itself, but the culture and the laws that enforce that data, the laws that made that impact.
I have an N95 mask. I have latex gloves that I put on when I go out, and I take them off, throw them away. Okay. So
I have a 45 gun. Maybe that might work. No,
yeah, but that doesn't.
you can put an N95.
Michigan guns don't listen to viruses. I'm sorry, they don't really care. You can bring all the guns you want to the Capitol. It will not make a difference.
None of that protesting helped.
I saw that. That's
all
insane.
it did was depress the doctors. Do you know that all of that protesting has caused the doctors to become very depressed? Did you know that?
Yeah, I mean, at best. But
I don't want my doctors depressed.
Okay, well, we have seen Dr. Rackner. Okay, part of it's the problems that we have in leadership. Part of the problem is the medical community not stepping up, and part of it is actually our community. In other words, the American culture. Okay, in and of itself, which is a culture of rebellion. Because let's face it, all our ancestors came over from somewhere because they rebelled, except for maybe the Native Americans. And how well did they do? They got smallpox, and we eradicated them. Think about that one. Okay, the thing is, so we come from a hereditary nature of rebellion, and it just doesn't work well against a virus. So
from a generation.
Yeah, we're like,